Due to technical issues, the search service is temporarily unavailable. The alien ship shuddered as it breached Earth's atmosphere, its hull groaning under the strain of re-entry. She clutched the controls with trembling hands, her delicate fingers struggling to stabilize the descent. Her species, once proud and thriving, had been reduced to scattered remnants across the galaxy, fleeing a plague that consumed everything in its path. She was one of the last, her body frail and her spirit broken. Her only hope was to find refuge among the Earthlings, a race rumored to be both powerful and merciful. She had heard stories of their strength, their ingenuity, and their capacity for kindness. But as her ship crashed into a field, sending dirt and debris flying, she wondered if those stories were true, or if she had doomed herself to die on this unfamiliar world. The impact left her dazed, her vision blurred, and her body aching. She stumbled out of the wreckage, her silver skin glistening under the sunlight. Her long, flowing hair, a shade of deep violet, clung to her face as she surveyed her surroundings. The air was thick with the scent of earth and greenery, a stark contrast to the sterile, lifeless environments she had grown accustomed to. In the distance, she saw a small settlement, a cluster of modest homes surrounded by fields of crops. Her heart raced as she realized she was not alone. She had to approach them, to beg for their mercy. She had nothing to offer but her servitude, and she prayed it would be enough. As she drew closer, she noticed a human working in the fields. He was tall and broad-shouldered, his skin tanned from hours under the sun. He moved with a confidence and strength that both intimidated and fascinated her. She hesitated, her voice catchy in her throat as she tried to summon the courage to speak. Finally, she stepped forward, her head bowed in submission. "Please," she whispered, her voice trembling, "I beg you, take me as your servant. I will do anything you ask." The human, John, paused, his brow furrowing as he studied her. He had never seen anything like her before. Her beauty was otherworldly, but it was her desperation that struck him the most. She looked so fragile, so lost. He set down his tools and approached her cautiously, his expression a mix of curiosity and concern. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice gentle but firm. "Where did you come from?" She hesitated, unsure how much to reveal. "I am from a world far from here," she said softly. "My people are dying. I came to Earth seeking refuge. I have no home, no family. All I ask is a chance to serve you, to earn my place here." John's heart ached at her words. He had always been a man of compassion, and her plea touched something deep within him. But he also knew that taking in a stranger, especially one who was clearly not human, was a risk. He glanced back at his farm, at the life he had built with his own two hands, and then back at her. She was so small, so vulnerable. How could he turn her away? "You don't have to be a servant," he said finally. "You can stay here as my guest. We'll figure things out together." The alien's eyes widened in disbelief. She had expected to be treated as a subordinate, as someone unworthy of respect. But John's kindness was unlike anything she had ever known. She felt a flicker of hope, a warmth spreading through her chest. Maybe, just maybe, she had found a place where she could belong. As John led her to his home, she couldn't help but marvel at the simplicity of his life. The farm was modest but well-kept, a testament to his hard work and dedication. She noticed the way he interacted with his animals, his voice soft and reassuring as he fed them. He treated even the smallest creatures with care and respect, a stark contrast to the harsh, survival-driven world she had left behind. That night, as she lay on a makeshift bed in John's spare room, she found herself unable to sleep. Her mind raced with questions and doubts. Why had he been so kind to her? What did he expect in return? She had spent her entire life believing that strength was the only thing that mattered, that the weak were meant to serve the strong. But John had shown her a different kind of strength, one rooted in compassion and generosity. It was a concept she couldn't fully grasp, but filled her with a sense of wonder and curiosity. As the first rays of sunlight crept through the window, she made a silent vow. She would do everything in her power to prove herself worthy of John's kindness. She didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, she felt a glimmer of hope. Perhaps, on this strange and beautiful planet, she could find a new purpose, a new life, and perhaps In the process, she would come to understand what it truly meant to be human. Due to technical issues, the search service is temporarily unavailable. The alien woke to the sound of birds chirping outside the window, a melody so foreign yet soothing to her ears. She stretched, her body still aching from the crash, but her spirit felt lighter than it had in years. The warmth of the morning sun filtered through the curtains, casting a golden glow across the room. She took a deep breath, savoring the scent of fresh earth and blooming flowers. For the first time in a long time, she felt a sense of peace. She found John in the kitchen, preparing a simple breakfast. The aroma of freshly baked bread and sizzling eggs filled the air, making her stomach growl. He smiled when he saw her, gesturing for her to sit at the table. "Hungry?" he asked, placing a plate in front of her. She nodded, her eyes wide with gratitude. The food was unlike anything she had ever tasted, rich, hearty, and full of flavor. She ate slowly, savoring every bite, while John watched her with a mixture of amusement and curiosity. After breakfast, John took her outside to show her around the farm. He explained the different crops he grew, the animals he cared for, and the tools he used to maintain the land. She listened intently, fascinated by his knowledge and skill. She had never seen anyone work with such dedication and pride. It was clear that this farm was more than just a source of food. It was a labor of love. As the days turned into weeks, the alien began to adapt to life on the farm. She watched John closely, learning from his example. She helped him plant seeds, tend to the animals, and repair the fences. At first, her movements were clumsy and unsure, but with time, she grew more confident. She discovered that she had a natural talent for working with her hands, a skill she had never had the opportunity to develop before. One afternoon, as they were harvesting vegetables, she noticed a group of children playing in the distance. They laughed and shouted, their voices carrying across the fields. She paused, watching them with a mixture of curiosity and longing. She had never seen such joy and innocence before. John noticed her gaze and smiled. "Those are the neighbors' kids," he said. "They come here sometimes to help out, or just to play. They're good kids." The alien nodded, her heart aching with a strange emotion. She had never known what it was like to be a child, to live without fear or worry. Her own childhood had been cut short by the plague, forcing her to grow up too quickly. She wondered what it would be like to laugh and play like those children, to feel carefree and happy. Later that evening, as they sat by the fire, John told her stories about his own childhood. He spoke of his family, his friends, and the adventures they had shared. His words painted a picture of a life filled with love and laughter, a stark contrast to the alien's own experiences. She listened in silence, her heart swelling with a mixture of envy and admiration. She realized that humanity's strength didn't just come from their physical abilities or their technological advancements. It came from their ability to connect with one another, to share their joys and sorrows, to build a community based on trust and compassion. One day, as they were working in the fields, a neighbor approached them, his face pale and his hands trembling. "John," he said, his voice urgent. "My son, he's sick. We don't know what's wrong. Please, can you help?" John didn't hesitate. He grabbed his medical kit and followed the man to his home, the alien trailing behind. When they arrived, they found the boy lying in bed, his skin clammy and his breathing shallow. The alien's heart ached at the sight. She had seen too much suffering in her life, and she couldn't bear to see it again. As John examined the boy, the alien felt a strange sensation in her chest. It was as if her body was urging her to act, to do something. Without thinking, she stepped forward and placed her hands on the boy's forehead. A warm, glowing light emanated from her fingertips, spreading across his body. The boy's breathing steadied and his color returned. The room fell silent as everyone stared at her in awe. John was the first to speak. What did you do?" he asked, his voice filled with wonder. The alien looked down at her hands, her own surprise mirrored in her expression. I don't know," she admitted. "I just felt like I had to help." The neighbor's eyes filled with tears as he hugged his son, who was now sitting up and smiling. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice choked with emotion. "Thank you so much." The alien felt a surge of pride and happiness. For the first time in her life, she had made a difference. She had used her abilities to help someone, to bring joy and relief to a family in need. It was a feeling she had never experienced before, and it filled her with a sense of purpose. As they walked back to the farm, John placed a hand on her shoulder. "You're amazing," he said, his voice filled with admiration. "You have a gift, you know that?" She smiled, her heart swelling with gratitude. I'm starting to understand what it means to be human," she said softly. John chuckled. "Well, you're definitely one of us now." That night, as she lay in bed, the alien felt a sense of contentment she had never known before. She had found a place where she belonged, a community that accepted her for who she was. She had discovered a new purpose, a reason to keep going. And as she drifted off to sleep, she knew that her journey was far from over. There was still so much to learn, so much to experience. But for the first time in her life, she was excited for what the future might hold. Due to technical issues, the search service is temporarily unavailable. The alien's newfound ability to heal became a turning point for her life on the farm. Word of her gift spread quickly through the settlement, and soon, people began to seek her out for help. At first, she was hesitant, unsure of how to control or even understand her power. But with each person she helped, her confidence grew. She discovered that her touch could mend wounds, ease pain, and even cure illnesses that had plagued the community for years. It was as if her body had been waiting for this moment, this purpose, all along. John watched her with pride, marveling at the way she embraced her role. She no longer saw herself as a helpless servant, but as someone who could make a real difference. Her days were filled with activity, tending to the sick, assisting John with the farm, and learning more about human life. She began to form bonds with the people around her, her shyness melting away as she became an integral part of the community. One evening, as they sat together under the stars, John turned to her with a thoughtful expression. "You've changed so much since you first arrived," he said. "You're not the same person who begged me to take her in. You're stronger now, more confident." She smiled, her violet eyes reflecting the starlight. "I think I've finally found my place," she replied. "For the first time in my life, I feel like I belong, and it's all because of you." John shook his head. "No, it's because of you. You chose to stay, to help, to become part of this community. That's all you." Their conversation was interrupted by the sound of distant thunder. The sky, which had been clear moments before, was now filled with dark, ominous clouds. John frowned, his expression tense. "That doesn't look good," he muttered. "We need to prepare." The storm hit with a fury unlike anything the alien had ever seen. The wind howled, tearing through the fields and threatening to uproot the crops. Rain poured down in sheets, turning the ground into a muddy quagmire. The settlement was thrown into chaos as people scrambled to secure their homes and protect their livestock. The alien worked alongside John, her heart pounding with fear and determination. She had faced many dangers in her life, but this was different. This was a battle against nature itself. As the storm raged on, the alien noticed something strange. The wind seemed to be carrying debris from the surrounding area, creating a dangerous whirlwind that threatened to destroy everything in its path. She knew they had to act quickly, but she wasn't sure how. Then an idea struck her. She turned to John, her voice urgent. "We need to create a barrier, something to redirect the wind." John nodded, his eyes filled with determination. "We'll use the tools and materials we have, but we'll need everyone's help." Together, they rallied the community. The alien used her knowledge of alien technology to devise a plan, while John and the others worked tirelessly to build the barrier. It was a race against time, but they refused to give up. The alien's hands glowed as she infused the structure with energy, strengthening it against the storm's relentless force. Hours later, as the storm began to subside, the barrier held firm. The settlement was battered but intact, thanks to the combined efforts of the community. The alien collapsed on the ground, exhausted but triumphant. She had never felt so alive, so connected to the people around her. They had faced the storm together, and they had emerged stronger for it. In the days that followed, the alien's reputation grew even further. The people of the settlement saw her not just as a healer, but as a protector, someone who would stand by them in their darkest moments. She continued to help wherever she could, using her abilities to repair the damage caused by the storm and to ensure that the community could recover. One day, as she was working in the fields, she noticed a group of children watching her from a distance. They whispered among themselves, their eyes filled with curiosity and admiration. She smiled and waved, inviting them to join her. They hesitated at first, but eventually they approached, their shyness giving way to excitement. "Can you teach us how to do that?" one of the children asked, pointing to the glowing energy in her hands. The alien laughed, a sound that was still unfamiliar, but increasingly natural to her. "I'm not sure if I can teach you," she said, "but I can show you how to use your own strengths to help others." The children listened intently as she spoke, their eyes wide with wonder. She realized that she had become a role model for them, someone they could look up to and learn from. It was a responsibility she hadn't expected, but one she embraced wholeheartedly. As the weeks passed, the alien's bond with the community deepened. She no longer felt like an outsider, but like a valued member of a family. She had found a sense of purpose and belonging that she had never thought possible. And as she looked to the future, she knew that her journey was far from over. There was still so much to learn, so much to experience. But for the first time in her life, she was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. One evening, as she stood on a hill overlooking the settlement, she felt a sense of peace wash over her. The sun was setting, casting a warm golden light over the fields and homes below. She thought about everything she had been through, the fear, the uncertainty, the hope. She had come to Earth as a desperate refugee, but she had found so much more than refuge. She had found a home. John joined her, standing by her side in silence. After a moment, he spoke. "You've come a long way," he said. "I'm proud of you." She smiled, her heart swelling with gratitude. "I couldn't have done it without you," she replied. "Thank you for giving me a chance." John shook his head. "You gave yourself that chance. All I did was open the door." As they stood together, watching the sun dip below the horizon, the alien felt a sense of hope and possibility. She had faced a storm and emerged stronger. She had found a community that accepted her for who she was. And she had discovered a strength within herself that she had never known existed. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in her life, she was ready to face it, not as a servant, but as a partner, a friend, and a member of the human family. Due to technical issues, the search service is temporarily unavailable. The alien stood at the edge of the field, her gaze fixed on the horizon. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow over the farm, and the air was filled with the sounds of life. Birds chirping, insects buzzing, and the distant laughter of children. It was a scene of peace and prosperity, a stark contrast to the chaos and despair she had left behind. But as she looked out the world she had come to call home, she knew that her journey was far from over. The message she had sent to her people had been received, and now she waited anxiously for a response. She didn't know how long it would take for them to reach Earth, or if they would even be able to make the journey, but she held on to hope, knowing that she had done everything in her power to give them a chance. In the meantime, she focused on her work, using her abilities to help the community and strengthen her bond with the humans who had welcomed her. One day, as she was tending to crops, she noticed a strange shimmer in the air. At first, she thought it was a trick of the light, but as she approached, she realized that it was something more. The air seemed to ripple, like the surface of a pond disturbed by a stone, and a faint hum filled the air. Her heart raced as she realized what was a portal, a gateway between worlds. She had heard stories of such things, but she had never seen one herself. She called out to John, who came running, his eyes wide with astonishment. "What is that?" he asked, his voice filled with awe. "It's a portal," she replied, her voice trembling with excitement. "My people, they found a way to reach us." As they watched, the portal grew larger, and figures began to emerge. They were frail and weary, their silver skin dull, and their eyes filled with exhaustion. But as they stepped onto the soil of Earth, their expressions changed, filled with wonder and relief. The alien felt a surge of emotion as she recognized familiar faces. Friends and family she had thought lost forever. She ran to them, her heart pounding with joy. "You made it," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "You're here." The leader of the group, an elder with wise eyes and a gentle smile, placed a hand on her shoulder. "We receive your message," he said. "You gave us hope when we had none. We owe you our lives." The alien shook her head. "No," she said. "You owe your lives to the humans. They are the ones who showed me kindness and taught me the true meaning of strength. They are the reason we have a chance to rebuild." The humans watched in silence as the two groups came together, their differences fading in the face of shared hope and determination. John stepped forward, his voice steady and strong. "Welcome," he said. "You are safe here. We will help you in any way we can." The elder nodded, his eyes filled with gratitude. "Thank you," he said. "We are in your debt." Over the next few weeks, the settlement worked together to integrate the newcomers. The humans shared their knowledge and resources, teaching the aliens how to farm and build, while the aliens shared their own skills and technologies. It was a time of learning and growth, a testament to the power of cooperation and compassion. The alien watched with pride as her people began to thrive, their spirits lifted by the kindness of the humans. She knew that there would be challenges ahead, but she also knew that they would face them together. She had found a new family, a new purpose, and a new hope for the future. One evening, as she stood with John beneath the stars, she felt a sense of peace and contentment. "Thank you," she said softly, "for everything." John smiled, his eyes filled with warmth. "You don't have to thank me," he said. "You've given us just as much as we've given you. You've shown us what it means to be truly human." She nodded, her heart swelling with gratitude. She had come to Earth seeking refuge, but she had found so much more. She had found a home, a family, and a purpose. And as she looked out at the world she had helped to build, she knew that her journey was just beginning. The stars above seemed to shine brighter, as if in celebration of the new hope that had been born on Earth. The alien felt a sense of connection to the universe, a reminder that no matter how vast and unknown it might be, there was always a place for those who dare to hope and to dream. And as she stood there, surrounded by the people she loved, she knew that she would never be alone again.